Hey everybody, this is TJ from lean6life.com. I've had a number of requests for foraging videos, enough that I thought maybe I should give it a try. I don't have any fancy video equipment or microphones, anything like that, so this first video may be a little rough. If there's enough viewership, perhaps it'll be worth investing in some better quality equipment. We'll see how it goes. If you enjoy this video, definitely give me a thumbs up and like below, and subscribe to my new YouTube channel. So here we have a black walnut tree. You can tell it's black walnut because of the patterns that the leaves make, and you can't really see the bark so well from here, but it's got the ropey kind of braided texture of black walnuts. It's the most common nut tree in this immediate area, but what I'm not seeing anywhere is any sign of actual walnuts. I've noticed that a lot of the local trees in this area for some reason just don't have that many nuts. There's not any, if we pan up a little bit, in the tree anywhere. And at this point in the year, the trees that do have walnuts, they're all over the ground underneath the tree, and I'm not seeing any here at all. Don't know if that's because of the weird weather we've had this year or if there's some other complicating factor, but we are not going to be foraging any black walnuts from this tree. A little further down the road, I found this very nice stand of rose hips. There's a lot of rose hips right here. They're very small. This is probably Rosa multiflora, which is basically a glorified weed in this part of Maryland. Well, probably everywhere. But luckily there's enough berries here that it could actually be worth coming back to harvest. Just need to be careful for the thorns. And if we look up and a little bit further behind the rose hips, there's a lot of poison ivy back there. So we'll also need to be very careful for that. There's also some other thorns. I don't know if you guys can see that there in the middle. That is a blackberry cane. Obviously at this time of year there's no fruit on it, but definitely good to know that it's here for next year. Rose hips are really high in vitamin C, so that definitely is worth stopping back. Probably not going to harvest them right now. Give it some more time for the foliage to die back, make it easier to see where the fruit is versus the thorns. So we've actually gotten under the cover of the trees now, so that's why the lighting's a little different. But I just wanted to show these brambles. This is a black raspberry. It's got the characteristic leaves of a raspberry, but if you look really closely, that stem has a bluish cast to it. Black raspberries are some of my favorites, so very excited to find this guy. And then right behind him, another bramble. Very similar leaves, but you'll notice, hopefully it focuses enough, you can see the reddish prickles all along the stem. That is a Japanese wineberry. So an invasive species in our area, but still a source of fruit for humans and birds both. I prefer the black raspberry personally. So there's a lot of black walnut trees in this area. I'm just looking up, studying the sky through them, you know, looking for that silhouette of any black walnuts at all. Checking the road down beneath them. I've seen a couple of black walnuts, almost none. So it wasn't just the tree further up the road. There's a shortage of black walnuts down here too. This cute little guy here, just sticking out of the embankment, heart-shaped leaves. That would be an eastern redbud. Not very interesting right now, but come spring, it'll be covered in beautiful edible flowers. So good to remember where this tree is so we can find our way back. early next year. Across the street from the eastern redbud, I spotted this shrub here with these bright red berries on it, and if you didn't know better, you might go, berries, fruit, they looks edible, kind of has a similar aspect to autumn olive, but this is not autumn olive. This is a type of honeysuckle, and those red berries are indeed poisonous. Notice how they're a very intense red, and they poke up from the branch instead of hanging down from the branch like you would see with autumn olive. And the shape is different, so it wouldn't be spicebush either. Plus, spicebush doesn't ripen all at the same time, so you would expect to see a mix of red and green berries as well. Not to mention the distinctive odor that a spicebush would have on it. So this is definitely not edible. I just wanted to include a video of it to remind everyone to be 100% sure of your identification before you eat anything that you find in the wild. Let me back up a little so you can see this. The belle of the ball, in our woods at least, is definitely the pawpaw. We have here a small stand of the very slender trees with the ginormous leaves. Looking around, we may have come too late for any pawpaws to harvest. When they're ripe, they all fall to the ground, and you would be able to smell them. The aroma of the sweetness of the pawpaws, it would just be overwhelming if there were fruit on the ground. This is a very, I wouldn't say treacherous, I guess that's a strong word, but this can be a dangerous area. Not dangerous, it's not that either. What you see down here, the stuff that's all pale, that's all wood nettle, relative to stinging nettle, which also does tend to sting. So getting in here to reach these pawpaws, if there were fruit on the ground, could be very challenging. This is why I always wear long sleeves and long pants, no matter how hot it is in the woods, to help protect against these, as well as thorns, brambles, things like that, ticks, mosquitoes. It's just always a good idea to keep your skin covered as much as possible. I'm gonna get a little bit closer to this tree. You can see the massive size of these leaves. It's like bigger than my hand. Of course, I don't have the biggest hand in the world, but you know, point is still the same. They have these extremely slender trunks. They're gray, smooth, and mottled, and that helps you know for sure that it's a pawpaw. We'll keep looking. Maybe we'll be able to find some with fruit somewhere. Maybe not. It's been just a weird weather year here, and maybe there won't be anything. So here's another pawpaw. This one growing right next to a black walnut. So you can actually see pretty clearly the characteristic differences. How smooth the pawpaw bark is on the left, and how rough and coarsely textured the black walnut is on the right. When I looked up into these trees, I didn't see fruit on either of them. However, looking down, that right there is what we're looking for. A pawpaw that has fallen out of the tree of its own accord. Indicator that it's ripe. There are some ants that are incredibly unhappy that I've messed with their lunch, but quite frankly, I'm higher on the food chain than they are. I found 2 other pawpaws on the ground underneath the tree. This is the same tree that we were just looking at. However, both of those are way too far gone to bother harvesting. So we're just going to let the ants keep those and take the one that appeared to be in better shape. So I thought we'd entirely missed the pawpaw window. I actually had to toss that last one that I'd been carrying around with me, because as I was carrying it, I realized that, yeah, my thumb could go completely into it because the ants had helped themselves long before I ever got to it. So because of the lighting You guys probably can't see this, but there's a cluster of 3 pawpaws right above me. They're still on the tree, which may or may not mean that they are all the way ripe. So far I haven't been able to find any on the ground. But if those guys are ripe, a good hard shove to the tree will bring them down. So this is that tree. And here's me attempting to give it a shove. Yeah, sorry about the video quality, guys. Hold on, let me stop the video and see if I can put all my weight into it. Yeah, they are all still up there. The tree's just so much bigger than I am that even my firmest shove couldn't make it budge, so maybe I'll just try back in a couple more days and see if they've fallen on their own by then. Who knows? Gave it a nice firm shove. It's a little bit easier for the ones that have the thinner branches, and I did hear a thud. So let's walk around and see if we can... Oh, there it is. It's so little. It is one of the things I've noticed about the pawpaws this year. Where you can find them, they're tending to be much smaller than average. Giving another couple of shakes to the various trees in the stand, just in case I can knock anything else loose before giving up and going further up the road. And that was the thud of a leaf. There's definitely pawpaws up there. Just can't get them to come loose. So here we find Spicebush. You may recall I was talking about the aroma that it has. If you take a leaf or a broken piece of twig and sniff it, I'm not actually going to show myself sniffing it. It has a definite spicy aroma. The berries can be harvested and dried. Best kept in the freezer if you're going to use them long term, because they tend to go rancid. They've got an extremely high oil content. You could just eat them straight off of the shrub like this. Now, Spicebush does have male and female plants. It's called being dioecious. Maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong, maybe I'm not. I don't really know. But this is a female plant because it's one of the ones with berries. You can also use the twigs or the leaves to make tea. I've also found a recipe where you infuse sugar with the Spicebush flavor by putting some of the twigs into a container with the sugar. Might have to give that a try. Well, here we have another pawpaw tree. And if we pan up, silhouetted against the sky, you can also see grapes. I don't know exactly what variety of wild grape it is, but it's definitely high up there, higher than even I think my shepherd's crook can reach. Also, they look really, really small. I don't know if that's because they're past their prime, or if it's just been such a dry summer and fall that the fruit never got very big. Either way, I don't know if it's worth the effort to try to reach up there and see if I can get them. So we were able to get down one single cluster of grapes. I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't look terribly appetizing to me. I think we're just going to give that a pass. As long as we're mentioning poisonous lookalikes, which we did earlier, what you see here that looks like grapes, this is actually moonseed. They are not at all grapes, even though they have a very similar habitat, very similar look, but as opposed to grape flavor, they are bitter, I believe. They are poisonous. You don't want to eat those. Again, folks.
Black stalk.
Yeah, see how the vine is it's black and smooth rather than being ropey like you would expect of a grapevine. So again, make sure of your identifications, guys. So here we have another black walnut tree. No walnuts on it anywhere. No walnuts on the ground below it. It does have this thick poison ivy vine going up it, so I'm not getting any closer to it. However, down below it does have a little patch of stinging nettle. Now, normally stinging nettle is a spring phenomenon. However, it's kind of like our cool season crops in a vegetable garden. It does come back a little bit in the spring, in the fall, as well as being present in the spring. Now, I'm not going to get too much closer to this patch because you see it also has a little bit of poison ivy right in the middle of it. So we're just going to slowly back away. So this is what an autumn olive looks like, as opposed to the honeysuckle that we were looking at earlier. I'm going to walk over here. There's not very many berries on this fruit, but you can see how there's not many berries on this plant. A lot of the autumn olives this year just didn't seem to produce very well. I don't know if that's because of a late frost or some other condition, but you can see how the berries hang from a stem under the branch rather than sticking up straight from the branch. They also have a more, I don't know, saturated tone. Also, the leaves are very silvery with these little red spots underneath. So you can definitely tell the difference between a honeysuckle and an autumn olive if you know what to look for. Now, each autumn olive has its own flavor. So I don't know what it is about growing conditions or if it's genetics. So you definitely want to try a couple of berries before you decide to just harvest everything. Remember, autumn olive is an invasive species in Maryland, pretty much everywhere. And by eating the fruit, you're helping prevent it from being spread by birds. So do your part and forage. As long as I'm talking about lookalikes, I also wanted to mention this. This is greenbrier. The leaves and young shoots are edible. You'll notice that it does have, oh, here's an even better picture, similar looking round black fruit like we were checking out with the grapes. I don't know for a fact that the greenbrier berries are toxic, but I've never seen them listed as edible, so I would not recommend trying them. But I just wanted to provide this video too as another example of something that looks like it could be edible, but really just isn't. Here we have, finally, black walnuts. There has been one singular tree so far that we've been able to find. No leaves at all on this guy anymore, which makes it really easy to see the walnuts in silhouette against the sky. Not necessarily enough to be worth trying to collect some. You can see where there had been some right there. There's a couple over there where the base of the tree is in the grass. The ones out here clearly got run over. And you know what? Here's another one right next to it. And another one over me. So thank goodness the squirrels will not starve to death this year. So I'm taking a few steps back to try to show as much as I can of this little tree here. And then I'm going to walk up. And there you can see its fruit. So what we have here is an American persimmon. Like Spicebush, it is also dioecious. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. So this would be the female tree. Presumably there's a male or multiple males nearby in order to be able to pollinate. It doesn't have very much fruit. The fruit it does have is exceedingly small. So It's good to know that this one is here, but I am probably not going to come back to check for fruit later. Like pawpaws, American persimmon is more likely to fall from the tree when it's perfectly ripe, and it tends to actually not be fully ripe until much, much later in the year, often around the time of the first frost, which led to the myth that the frost actually helped it sweeten. It was just a matter of timing more than anything else. So, if you've been following my blog for a while, you know that I've been on a hunt for American hazelnut. I knew it had to be in our local woods somewhere, and this was one of the 2 trees that I found back in the spring when all you could see was the male catkins hanging from the trees. One of my big concerns, these aren't very close to where I normally operate, so I didn't think I'd be able to keep an eye on them and get back in time before the squirrels could get the nuts, because everybody loves hazelnuts. But this one, there's one cluster of nuts left on it. Of course, it's way, way, way over my head, so we'll see whether or not I can figure out some way to get it. I left my shepherd's crook behind, so I don't have anything handy to try to hook it and pull it down with, so let's see if we can figure something out. Well, there we go. It was a fair amount of effort, but we did in fact manage to score 4 hazelnuts. Not sure if they were all the way ripe. Maybe the squirrels knew better and that's why they were still up there, but at least I can say for once I actually managed to forage hazelnuts. Yay! Last but certainly not least, we have my ancient foe, my mortal enemy, Japanese knotweed. It's growing near a culvert, as many of them tend to do. I speculate that a piece of the stem got broken loose from another patch and got washed to this location. That's one of the things that makes knotweed so very dangerous, the fact that even a piece of stem can root into a whole new plant, and then it continues to spread by suckering. So you can see the stem there, somewhat bamboo looking. You can see an old stem mixed in with some newer ones down there. There's the flowers, refusing to focus. There we go. I think it's referred to as an inflorescence. They're normally white and prettier than that, which is one of the reasons Japanese knotweed was introduced to America. It was a very pretty windbreak, and yeah, it's just continued to invade one step at a time. I keep finding new infestations of it all over the county, so this is the one that's closest to my home. Very, very tasty weed in the spring. Do your part to defend your local ecosystem by foraging.